My name is Jack. I live in Colorado, and I run a small logistics office here. We handle deliveries, routes, and late shipments for a few local companies. It is not a big operation, just a front desk, a few computers, and a hallway that gets way too quiet after everyone goes home. Most of the real work falls on me. The paperwork, the reports, the late night approvals that nobody else wants to deal with. So I stayed up late, a lot. Some nights I am the only person left in the whole building. And when everyone leaves, when that last door closes and that last car pulls out of the parking lot, you start noticing things you normally ignore. The way the lights hum, that low, constant buzzing that fills the silence. The way the glass doors reflect nothing but darkness when you look at them from the inside. The weight of being completely alone in a building that feels too big, too empty, too exposed. The office sits right across from a bus stop. During the day, people wait there. They check their phones. They look down the street for the next bus. Normal things. But at night, that bus stop barely sees any traffic. The last bus rolls through around 7 p.m. After that, it is just an empty bench under a flickering streetlight. The hum of the air conditioner fills every corner of the office. It is always cold in here, even in summer, but in winter, it feels like the cold seeps through the walls, through the windows, into your bones. When the last person walks out and I hear that door lock click behind them, the silence presses against my chest. It is the kind of silence that makes you aware of your own breathing. My job is not exciting. I handle documents, make decisions, sign forms, solve small problems that keep the operation alive. It is routine, predictable, quiet, at least it used to be. Everything changed last winter. It started with a sound. Not a scream, not footsteps, not anything you'd expect in a horror story. Just a buzzing fluorescent light in the hallway outside my office. It flickered. On and off. On and off. That quick strobing effect that makes shadows jump. And every time it buzzed, I felt this strange pressure in my chest. Like something unseen was already there, already watching, long before I ever noticed. I remember the first time I really paid attention to it. I was sitting at my desk, staring at spreadsheets, and the light started flickering. I looked up, watched it for a few seconds, then it stopped. I went back to work, but the feeling did not go away. That pressure, that sense that something had shifted, that the building was not as empty as it should have been. That was the start. It was around 9 p.m. when I finally packed up to leave. Everyone else had already gone home hours ago. The building felt hollow, empty in a way that made every sound louder than it should be. The hum of the air conditioner, the creak of my chair when I stood up, the soft click of my office door closing behind me. I walked down the hallway, my footsteps echoing off the walls. The fluorescent lights overhead cast this harsh, white glow that made everything look washed out. When I reached the front doors, I stopped to set the alarm, punched in the code, waited for the beep. Then I stepped outside into the cold air. My breath came out in clouds. The temperature had dropped hard that night. The kind of cold that stings your face and makes your fingers go numb even inside your pockets. The parking lot was almost empty. Just my car sitting under a dying streetlight that flickered every few seconds. The light would go bright, then dim, then bright again, like it was struggling to stay alive. I pulled my keys out of my pocket. The metal felt ice cold in my hand. That is when I saw him. A man, standing at the bus stop across the street, completely still. At first, I did not think much of it. People wait at bus stops, that is normal. But something about the way he stood made me pause. He was not checking his phone, not looking down the road for a bus. not shifting his weight or adjusting his coat against the cold. Just standing there, facing my building, directly where I stood. I tried to make sense of it. Maybe he missed the last bus. Maybe he was waiting for someone to pick him up. Maybe he was just resting. But buses do not run that late on our street, not at 9 p.m. I stood there for a moment, keys in my hand, staring at him. He did not move, did not turn away, did not even seem to notice that I was staring back. The streetlight above him flickered. For a split second, his face disappeared into shadow. Then the light came back, and he was still there, still watching. A cold feeling crawled up my spine. Not fear exactly, just unease. The kind of feeling you get when something is not quite right, but you cannot put your finger on what it is. I walked to my car, fumbling with my keys. My hands were shaking. From the cold, I told myself. Just from the cold. But the whole time, I could feel his eyes on me, burning into the back of my head, following my every movement. I got into my car and locked the doors immediately. The sound of the locks clicking into place made me feel slightly better and safer. I put the key in the ignition, turned it. The engine coughed, sputtered, made this awful grinding sound like it did not want to start. My heart jumped into my throat. I tried again. This time the engine roared to life. The sound was so loud in the silent parking lot that it made me flinch. I glanced across the street. He was still there, still watching. I put the car in reverse and backed out of the parking space. My headlights swept across the street, illuminating him for a brief second. Tall, thin, wearing a dark coat and a cap pulled low over his face. His hands were in his pockets. His posture was relaxed, but his eyes, even from that distance, even in the dark, I could feel them locked onto me. I drove away, faster than I normally would. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles went white. As I turned the corner, I looked in my rearview mirror. He was still standing there, still facing the direction I had driven, like he was memorizing which way I went. I told myself it was nothing, just some guy, just a coincidence, just my imagination running wild because I had been working too late and watching too many horror movies. I was wrong. The next evening, I stayed late again. I had convinced myself that the man at the bus stop was nothing, a random stranger, someone who happened to be waiting in the wrong place at the wrong time. But deep down I knew better. Around 8:30 p.m., I was finishing up some paperwork when I stood up to stretch. My back was sore from sitting all day. I walked over to the window near the front desk, just to look outside, just to give my eyes a break from the computer screen. I glanced across the street. My stomach dropped. He was there again. Same spot, same posture, same eerie stillness. But this time, his body was angled slightly differently, not facing the building directly, facing the side door, the door I always used to leave, like he knew, like he had watched me the night before and learned my pattern. My mouth went dry. My heart started pounding in my chest. I stepped back from the window, out of sight. My mind was racing. This was not a coincidence. This was not random. I went to the security monitor at the front desk. We have cameras covering the front of the building, the parking lot, and the side entrances. I pulled up the live feed. The grainy black and white image showed him clearly now, standing under the streetlight, sharp jaw, hollow eyes barely visible beneath a cap pulled low over his face. He looked thin, but not weak. There was something tense about the way he stood, something coiled, like a spring waiting to snap. I stared at the screen. My hands were trembling. While I stood there, I heard footsteps behind me. I spun around. It was Mia, my assistant, She had come back into the office. She had forgotten her scarf. She saw the look on my face, the fear I could not hide. "What is wrong?" I did not say anything. I just pointed at the monitor. She leaned in close. Her eyes went wide. Her face went pale. "He was here yesterday too, was he not?" Her voice was barely above a whisper. I nodded slowly. We both already knew. For a long moment, neither of us said anything. We just stood there, staring at the screen, watching this man who would not move, would not leave, would not stop watching. "Who is he?" Mia asked. "I do not know." "What does he want?" "I do not know." But that was a lie. Deep down, I knew he wanted something. I just did not know what yet. "Come on," I said. "I will walk you to your car." We left the building together. Watched her lock the doors, watched her start the engine and drive away. Only then did I walk to my own car. The whole time, I could feel him watching me. I did not look at him. I did not want to make eye contact. I just walked quickly, got into my car, locked the doors, and drove off. But as I pulled out of the parking lot, I could not help myself. I looked. He was still there, just watching. And this time, I swear I saw his head turn, following my car as I drove away. That night, I did not sleep well. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw him, standing in the dark. The next morning, I took the bus to work. My car was in the shop. It had been making that choking sound again, that awful grinding noise every time I tried to start it. So I finally gave in and left it there for a full inspection. The bus ride felt longer than usual. Every stop, every red light, every person who got on and sat down near me. I kept looking out the window, scanning the sidewalks, the street corners, the bus stops we passed, looking for him. That tall figure, that dark coat, that cap pulled low. But I did not see him. Not during the day. He never came during the day. When I finally arrived at the office, I was already on edge. My nerves were frayed. I had barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes the night before, I saw him standing there, watching. The moment I walked through the front doors, the security guard stopped me. His name is Ron. Big guy. Probably in his late 30s. Normally, calm and easygoing. The kind of person who makes small talk about sports or the weather or whatever is on the news that morning. But that morning, his face looked different. Tight. Worried. His eyes had that look people get when they have seen something they wish they could unsee. "Jack." The way he said my name made my stomach drop. "You need to see something." He did not wait for me to respond. He just turned and walked toward the security office, his heavy footsteps echoing in the empty lobby. I followed him, my mouth already going dry. The security office is small, just a cramped room with monitors covering one wall, all showing different angles of the building. Cameras outside, cameras in the hallways, cameras in the parking lot. Ron has been working here for years. He knows every blind spot, every glitch in the system, every angle. He sat down at the desk and pulled up footage from the night before. His hands moved quickly across the keyboard, typing in timestamps, scanning through hours of recorded video. He knew exactly what he was looking for. "This was recorded about 10 minutes after you left last night." He hit play. The screen showed the front of the building. The timestamp in the corner read 9:47 p.m. The street was empty. No cars, no movement. Just the glow of streetlights cutting through the darkness. The wind was blowing. I could tell from the way the trees in the background swayed slightly. For a few seconds, nothing happened. Just an empty street, empty sidewalk, the building sitting there in the dark. Then he appeared. The man from the bus stop? He stepped into frame from the left side of the screen, moving slowly, not rushing, not looking around like someone who was lost or confused or trying to avoid being seen, just walking straight toward the building, like he had every right to be there, like he had done this before. My chest tightened, my hands clenched into fists. He crossed the road at an angle, cutting directly toward the front entrance. The camera angle was perfect. I could see everything. The way he moved, the way his coat hung off his thin frame, the way his head was tilted slightly forward, like he was focused on something specific. When he reached the front doors, he stopped. For a moment, he just stood there, hands in his coat pockets, shoulders slightly hunched against the cold. His breath came out in visible clouds. Then he leaned forward, close, so close that the camera caught every detail of his face. He pulled his cap back slightly, just enough. His eyes scanned the glass, the lobby beyond, the dark hallway that led deeper into the building. It looked like he was checking if anyone was still inside, searching for movement, for light, for signs of life. Ron paused the video. The image froze. The man's face filled the screen, sharp jaw, sunken eyes, cheekbones that jutted out, a face that looked like it had seen too much, suffered too much, a face carved by anger and obsession. His eyes were the worst part. Even in the grainy black and white footage, those eyes looked empty, dead, like there was nothing human left inside. "You know this guy?" Ron asked. His voice was quiet. I shook my head. My throat felt tight. Never seen him before, except for 3 nights ago. Ron leaned back in his chair, his arms crossed over his chest. He did not try to break in, did not knock on the door, did not try the handle, did not test the locks, just looked, like he was studying the place. Then he left. Where did he go? Ron switched to another camera feed. The side angle, wider view, different perspective. The man stepped back from the doors. Then, finally, he turned and walked down the road, out of frame, disappearing into the darkness. I felt sick. My stomach twisted into knots. My hands were shaking. This was not random. This was not some confused stranger who got the wrong address or missed his ride home or was waiting for someone who never showed up. He was watching me, tracking my schedule, figuring out when I was alone, when the building was empty, when I was vulnerable. Ron printed a still image from the footage, the clearest shot of the man's face. He handed it to me. The paper felt heavy in my hand. I stared at the image, at this face, this stranger, this man I did not know, a man who somehow knew me. "I am sending this to Mr. Charles," Ron said. "He needs to know what is going on here." I nodded. I could not speak, could not think, could not process what I was seeing. All I could think was, why me? What does he want? What did I do? But I had no answers, only fear. That day at work felt wrong from the first moment I sat down at my desk. Nothing was different on the surface, the same papers, the same computer screen, the same cold air blowing through the vents, but everything felt off, like the world had shifted just slightly out of alignment. I kept checking the windows, every hour, every 30 minutes, sometimes every few minutes. Not because I expected to see him during the day, he never came in daylight, but because my mind would not stop racing, would not stop replaying the footage, the way he leaned toward the glass, the way he watched, the way he waited. The hours dragged. Paperwork piled up, but I could barely focus on it. Phone calls came in, but I answered them on autopilot. My mind was somewhere else, stuck in a loop of fear and questions that had no answers. That evening, I finished my work earlier than usual. My hands were shaking as I packed up my things. My car was still in the shop. They said it needed another day, maybe 2, so I had to wait for the company transport bus to pick me up. It always came late, around 8:30 p.m., sometimes even later than that. Instead of sitting alone in my office, surrounded by silence and shadows and my own spiraling thoughts, I moved to the assistant's desk near the front entrance. From there, I could see everything. The glass doors, the empty street outside, the parking lot where my car should have been but was not, the bus stop across the road where he always stood. I sat there with my jacket in my lap, phone in my hand, pretending to scroll through emails or social media or anything to keep my hands busy. But I was not really looking at the screen. My eyes kept lifting, checking the sidewalk, the shadows, the spaces between the streetlights where someone could hide. Every few minutes, I leaned forward to get a better view, to make certain he was not out there, not waiting, not watching. And he was not. The street stayed empty. The bus stop remained vacant. No tall figure, no dark coat, no cap pulled low over hollow eyes. For the first time in days, there was nothing. Just empty street and cold wind and the hum of distant traffic. At 8:32 p.m., I saw headlights appear from down the road. The office bus, right on time for once. It pulled up to the curb with a hiss of air brakes. The doors folded open. I stood up, grabbed my jacket, walked toward the front doors of the building. The whole time, my eyes stayed locked on that bus stop, watching, waiting for him to step out of the shadows, to appear like he always did. But nothing happened. I pushed through the doors and stepped outside. The cold air hit my face immediately. My breath came out in clouds. I walked to the bus, my footsteps echoing in the empty parking lot. The whole walk, maybe 20 feet, felt like a mile. Every shadow looked darker than it should. Every sound made my heart jump. I climbed onto the bus, found a seat near the middle, sat down. The doors closed with a mechanical thunk. As the bus pulled away from the curb, I finally exhaled, let myself breathe properly for the first time in hours. But then, as I looked back through the window, watching the office building grow smaller and smaller in the distance, a thought crept into my mind. A dark, cold thought wrapped around my chest and squeezed. He did not show up tonight. I don't think he gave up. Not because he lost interest. Maybe because my car was not in the parking lot today. He thought I was not there, thought I had left early, and somehow that realization scared me more than anything else, because it meant he was not just watching randomly. He was paying attention, close attention. He knew my car, he knew my schedule, he knew when I should be there and when I should not. He was learning, planning, waiting for the right moment, and I knew, deep in that cold place where fear lives and truth hides, that he was not done with me yet, not even close. The next morning felt heavier, like the air itself had weight. I took the bus to work again. My car was still in the shop. The guy said maybe one more day, or 2. The mechanic could not figure out what was wrong with it. When I walked into the office, Ron was already at his desk in the hallway. He looked up when he saw me, gave me a nod, but his face was tight, worried, like he had been thinking about the footage all night too. The morning dragged by slowly. Emails, phone calls, paperwork, all of it felt meaningless, like I was just going through the motions while my mind was somewhere else entirely. Around 10 a.m., my office phone rang. The sound made me jump. My heart lurched in my chest. I looked at the caller ID, Mr. Charles. the man who owns the building, the man who funds the entire operation, the man who keeps everything running but stays in the background. He handles things when they get too serious for me. If Mr. Charles calls you directly, something is wrong. Something big. I picked up the phone on the third ring. Jack, you at the office? His voice was too calm. The kind of calm that comes before a storm. The kind that makes your stomach drop before any words are even spoken. Yes, there was a pause. Not hesitation. Just that heavy silence that comes before bad news. The kind that makes your pulse quicken and your hands go cold. Good. I will be there in 20 minutes. We need to talk. In person. He hung up before I could ask any questions. I sat there at my desk, staring at the phone in my hand like it was a foreign object. My leg bounced nervously under the desk. I tried to focus back on the computer screen in front of me, tried to read emails, tried to do anything to distract myself from the growing pit of dread in my stomach, but my mind kept drifting, back to the footage, back to the man at the bus stop, back to his empty eyes staring through the glass like he could see right through me. 20 minutes felt like an eternity, but I knew better. Minutes later, Mr. Charles walked through the front doors in a black suit and dark tie. Gray-tinted glasses covered his eyes. He looked like a mafia boss. No smile, no small talk. Just the way he carried himself told me this conversation was going to change everything. Come on, he said. We are stepping out. We walked to his truck parked across the street. The same street where the man had stood. The same bus stop where he had waited. Mr. Charles unlocked the doors and we climbed inside. He did not start the engine, just sat there, hands resting on the steering wheel, staring straight ahead through the windshield. For a long moment, he did not say anything, just sat there in silence, thinking, choosing his words carefully. Finally, he spoke. I looked into the guy from the footage, ran his face through some contacts I have, people who know people, people who keep track of things most folks do not want to know about. He paused. His jaw tightened. My heart was pounding. I could hear the blood rushing in my ears. His name is Vincent Hale, and he is not just some drifter or homeless guy hanging around bus stops. Mr. Charles turned to look at me. His expression was hard, serious, the kind of look that made you understand the weight of what was coming next. He has a history, a violent one. People who crossed him have disappeared. Not arrested, not taken to court, not thrown in jail. Just gone. Vanished. No bodies, no leads, just empty homes, unanswered questions, and families that never got closure. My hands went cold, like all the blood had drained from my fingers. Why is he watching me? My voice came out shaky, barely above a whisper. Mr. Charles exhaled slowly. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper, unfolded it carefully, smoothed it out on the dashboard. It was a printed photo, a mugshot, maybe, or a surveillance photo, hard to tell. It contains pictures of a man in his 30s, dark hair, lean build, sharp features, similar bone structure to mine, similar height, similar frame, but there was one major difference. His tattoos, full chest, both arms, heavy, dark ink, old prison-style tattoos, thick black lines, symbols, names, dates, the kind of ink that tells a story, a violent story. Years ago, Mr. Charles said quietly, Vincent had a partner, a business deal that went bad, real bad. His partner betrayed him, set him up to take the fall for something big, Something that ruined Vincent's life. He pointed to the photo. The fallout was brutal. Vincent lost everything. His money, his reputation, his freedom for a while, and his family. His family died in a fire that investigators linked back to the betrayal, back to his partner. I felt my pulse in my ears, pounding. The partner had a son, Mr. Charles continued. His voice was low, steady. The son knew what his father did. He knew Vincent would come for him eventually, knew Vincent would never stop looking, so he ran, disappeared completely, changed his name maybe, started over somewhere far away. Mr. Charles looked at me. Rumors said he went west. Some people thought he came to Colorado to hide, to blend in, to disappear into a small town where nobody would know his face or his name or what his father did. So why me? I asked. My voice cracked. I have lived here my whole life. I was born here. I grew up here. I am not hiding from anyone. I have never even left this state for more than a vacation. I know, Mr. Charles said, but from a distance, in the dark, across the street, you look like him. Same height, same build, same general profile, same way of moving. Enough to fool someone who has been searching for years. Someone who has been looking at old photos and imagining what this guy would look like now. He tapped the photo, pointed to the tattoos. The son has these, you do not. But Vincent does not know that. Not from across a bus stop, not through a window at night, not from 100 feet away in the dark. I stared at the photo. My hands were shaking. This stranger in the picture, he looked enough like me to be mistaken for me in low light, in the wrong place, at the wrong time, and because of that, I had become a target for a man who had nothing left to lose, a man who had spent years hunting someone, a man who thought he had finally found his enemy. So what do we do? I asked. My voice was barely audible. Mr. Charles folded the paper and put it back in his pocket. His jaw tightened, his eyes hardened. We end this, properly, before it gets worse. Mr. Charles made a call right there in the truck. He pulled out his phone and dialed a number from memory. I could not hear who he was talking to, but the conversation was short, serious, the kind of conversation where every word mattered. When he hung up, he turned to me. I have set up a meeting, neutral ground, somewhere safe. I will be there. You will be there. And so will Vincent. My stomach dropped. You want me to meet him? Not a choice, Jack. His voice was firm, final. If we do not settle this now, he will keep coming. And next time, he might not just be watching. Next time, he might do something neither of us can take back. I felt my chest tighten, my throat closed up. Every instinct in my body screamed at me to run, to leave town, to disappear the way the real son had disappeared. But I nodded. Mr. Charles looked at me. This is the only way. We show him the truth. We prove you are not who he thinks you are. And we end this. And if he does not believe us? Mr. Charles did not answer right away. He just stared out the windshield, his hands gripping the steering wheel. Finally, he said, "Then I will deal with that when it happens." The weight of those words settled over me like a cold blanket. I did not ask what he meant. I did not want to know. We drove to a quiet diner outside town, the kind of place truckers stop at, the kind of place where nobody asks questions and nobody remembers faces. The parking lot was almost empty, just a few cars scattered around. The neon sign above the entrance flickered weakly in the gray afternoon light. Mr. Charles parked near the front, turned off the engine. The sudden silence felt suffocating. He looked at me. He is already inside. I arranged this with someone in his circle, told him to meet me here. My hands were shaking. I tried to hide it, but could not. What if this goes wrong? I asked. Mr. Charles's jaw tightened. It cannot. We got out of the truck. Every step toward that diner felt heavier than the last. My chest felt tight. I could barely breathe. The cold air bit at my face. The wind carried the smell of diesel and old grease from the diner's exhaust vent. When we stepped inside, the smell hit me harder. Coffee. Old cigarette smoke that had soaked into the walls over decades. The diner was nearly empty. Just a waitress behind the counter wiping down glasses. An old man sitting in a corner booth reading a newspaper. The hum of a fluorescent light overhead. The distant sound of a radio playing country music too low to make out the words. And then I saw him, Vincent, sitting alone in a booth near the back. A cup of coffee was in front of him that he had not touched. His hands were folded on the table. His eyes stared straight ahead at nothing. When we walked in, he looked up, and the moment he saw me, confusion spread over his face. Slow and heavy, he did not stand, did not speak, just stared. My legs almost gave out. This was him, the man who had been watching me, the man who had stood at that bus stop night after night, the man who had leaned toward the glass of my building like he was trying to see inside my soul. Mr. Charles walked over first. I followed behind, my legs barely working. My heart hammered so hard I thought it might break through my ribs. We slid into the booth across from him. The vinyl seat was cracked and cold. Vincent's eyes never left my face. He was studying me, searching for signs, some confirmation that I was who he thought I was. Mr. Charles placed a folder on the table between us. He opened it slowly, deliberately. Inside were photographs, clear ones. The real son, the man Vincent had been hunting for years. The tattoos covered him, chest to waist, arms to wrists. Thick black ink that told stories and symbols and names, the kind that marks you forever. Vincent stared at the photos, then at me, then back to the photos. His face did not change much, but something in his eyes shifted, cracked, like a dam breaking slowly from the inside. His voice came out weak, broken. They said he came here. They said he hid in this town. I shook my head. My throat was so tight I could barely speak. I have lived here all my life. I was born here. I have never been anyone else. Vincent's hands trembled slightly on the table. He picked up one of the photos, held it close to his face, stared at it like he was seeing a ghost, like he was trying to change the image, to become me. I have been looking for him for 8 years, he whispered. 8 good years. Mr. Charles leaned forward. His voice was firm but not unkind. This is not him, Vincent. You have been watching the wrong man. For a long moment, Vincent did not respond. He just sat there, empty, hollowed out. A man who had spent years chasing the wrong ghost. A man whose entire purpose had just crumbled in front of him. He did not get angry, did not stand up, did not raise his voice or flip the table or pull a weapon. He just sat there, looking broken. The silence stretched on. The waitress walked by with a pot of coffee. The old man turned a page of his newspaper. The radio kept playing that low country song. Finally, Vincent slid the photos back across the table. His movements were slow, stiff, mechanical, like his body was operating on autopilot while his mind tried to process what had just happened. He stood up, looked at me one last time, not with anger, not with hate, not even with disappointment, just with exhaustion. The kind of exhaustion that comes from carrying something too heavy for too long. from dedicating years of your life to something that turned out to be nothing. Then he turned and walked out of the diner. The door swung shut behind him with a soft chime. Mr. Charles and I sat there in silence for a long time. Neither of us spoke. Neither of us moved. We just sat there, watching through the street window as Vincent climbed into an old pickup truck and drove away. The brake lights glowed red for a moment at the parking lot exit, then he was gone. He never returned to my office, never showed up at the bus stop again. But here's the part I could never shake. The part that still keeps me up at night. Even now, when I work late, when the hallway lights flicker, when I walk past that quiet bus stop at night, I feel something cold settle in my chest, a weight, a presence, a memory that refuses to fade. Because all my life, I thought danger came from doing something wrong, from making bad choices, from putting yourself in the wrong place at the wrong time. But I learned something much darker, something that changed the way I see the world. Sometimes a stranger looks at you and sees someone else's sins, someone else's face, someone else's past, and you can live your whole life in one place. Quiet, harmless, doing everything right, following every rule, and still end up hunted by a man searching for the person he hates most in the world, by a man who was never looking for you but almost took you anyway. That is a different kind of terror, one that never really leaves you, one that sits in the back of your mind like a shadow you cannot shake, because it means nowhere is truly safe. It means you can be minding your own business, living your own life, causing no harm, and still become a target for someone else's nightmare.